For decades, Spain were considered the biggest underachievers in world football, a national team blessed with so much talent, but always failing to deliver on the biggest stages. But in 2008, under the leadership of Luis Aragones, Spain built a fantastic team that made the dreams of millions come true in 4 years. When you think of a national team's prime on the biggest stage, which country comes to mind? Some of you might say Brazil, which won 3 World Cups between 1958 and 1970, or the German team from 1972 to 1980, who won 2 Euros and 1 World Cup. Yes, those are some outstanding achievements, but nothing comes close to Spain's generation of 2008 to 2012, who had lost just 1 match and won everything possible in the span of 48 months. But before we get to their 2008 triumph, let's set the scene and put their previous performances into context. Why have Spain been so unlucky on the biggest occasions for so many years? Yes, technically they had their moments of glory, but La Roja's only title at Euro 1964 was a distant memory, and the talented Spanish team desperately needed to take that final step forward and deliver at a major tournament. To be fair, the 90s were the years that heralded a series of tournaments in which Spain slowly and gradually began to raise their game. It was during this decade that La Roja finally managed to make a positive impact at major tournaments, although they never made it to the final stages. They reached the quarterfinals in 1994, 1996 and 2000, and suffered a disappointing group stage exit at the 1998 World Cup, despite a crushing 6-1 win over Bulgaria. And unlike the previous 30 years, when partial successes alternated with complete failures, Spain now had a huge talent on their disposal. In the 1990s and the turn of the new century, the national team featured players like Luis Enrique, Pep Guardiola, Raúl and Luis Morientes, top players for Barcelona and Real Madrid respectively. And yes, all of those performances were painful for every single Spain fan, but nothing could compare to the loss against France in the 2006 World Cup. Players such as Sergio Ramos, Carles Puyol, Iker Casillas and Xavi Hernandez had already established themselves in the team. However, they once again failed to reach the coveted semi-final stage, something they had not done in 22 years. With the last occasion coming in 1984, when they even reached a Euro final only to lose to France. This time, Les Bleus again proved to be the Black Cats for Spain, coming from 1-0 down to win 3-1. The loss seemed to have a knock-on effect on Spain's development for the next few years, as coach Luis Aragones was forced to make some major changes. At the end of 2006, he dropped Raúl and Morientes from the squad for the Euros qualifiers, and the pair were never called up again. The Spanish Football Federation wanted changes, and they were implemented. Yes, these decisions seemed too drastic, as Morientes, and especially Raúl, were icons for Real Madrid and Spain. However, Aragones was convinced in his ideology. He was sure that with the quality Spain had in midfield, they were bound to change their style of play, from the one they had been adopting with Morientes and Raúl up front. And one of the pillars of the 2008 team, Marcos Senna, explained it brilliantly. Spain have always had a passing game, but this involved playing the ball into wide areas and crossing it into good finishers like Fernando Morientes and players like him. However, Aragonés decided to change the style of play, no longer employing this idea of crossing from those wide areas. It was then when he decided to put his faith into the smaller players. For instance, at Euro 2008 in Austria and Switzerland, Spain arrived with twice as few strikers as in 2006, David Villa, Fernando Torres and Mallorca's Dani Guisa. On the other hand, Spain were packed with talent in the centre of the pitch, with 6 world-class players, each of whom deserved to be a starter: Iniesta, Xavi, David Silva, Marcos Senna, Xavi Alonso and Cesc Fabregas. A midfield made in heaven. And they actually got off to an impressive start, a 4-1 win over Russia in their first game. The undoubted star of the night was Villa, who scored his first hat-trick for Spain. Eventually, he went on to become Spain's all-time leading scorer, but it was those 3 goals that set La Roja on the road to greatness. Also memorable was Iniesta's magical assist for 2-0, when he fooled his Russian opponent by running left and right before slipping a precise pass to Villa, who slotted the ball between the keeper's legs. Then, in the next game, Villa again proved to be vital for his team, scoring a 92-minute winner against Zlatan Ibrahimovic's Sweden. Ibrahimovic himself scored to level it 1-1 in the first half, and just when it was looking like nobody would break the deadlock, Villa completely outclassed the Swedish defence, moving perfectly in the penalty area. He received a long through ball behind the defence, found a gap and put the ball perfectly into the back of the net. After another effortless win in the third round, 2-1 against Greece, it was time for the big challenge. I mean, we could probably say it was one of the biggest ever in Spain's entire history. They qualified for the quarterfinals, but had to find the perfect solution to grab the victory against Italy. And to put it into perspective, let's not forget that Italy were the heavy favourites going into the game, having beaten Spain on 5 out of 5 occasions in major tournaments, and were also the reigning world champions at the time. La Roja were up against the wall, with some pundits even suggesting that Luis Aragones' side would need a miracle to win. All in all, psychologically, this was a huge game for Spain. After 120 minutes without goals, Spain and Italy went to penalties. This time Iker Casillas was the hero for the team, saving 2 out of 4 of Italy's executions. Spain had finally done it. They had beaten their fiercest rivals in a competitive match. It was a victory that would prove decisive not only for Euro 2008, but for the entire Spanish golden generation. Even in the years that followed those phenomenal triumphs, people often refer back to the victory over Italy. It was that much-needed psychological boost, after which everything just clicked. Then, in the semi-finals, Spain looked set for an easy victory over Russia, but after their heroics against Italy, it would have been a shame to underestimate their opponents. And in the semis, however, it was clear that the bad sensations had been replaced by optimism. Luis Aragones and his boys knew that their time to shine had finally come. So they came out against Russia with a certain arrogance, looking more solid than ever. Spain were impeccable in every department, conceding just 1 shot on target. The defense was excellent, but what about the midfield? Again, as in every match of the tournament, Xavi and Iniesta were the main creative forces. And interestingly, the opening goal of the semi-final was set up entirely by the 2 Barcelona superstars. Iniesta found himself on the edge of the box and created space for a cross. He made a sharp pass into the 6-yard box, where Xavi just slotted it home for 1-0. Talking of Spain's midfield, this was the game in which La Roja's midline really came into their own on the biggest stage. An assist from Iniesta and a goal from Xavi for 1-0. An assist from Fabregas for 2-0 and another assist from Fabregas and a goal from David Silva for 3-0. Russia had no answer to Spain's tiki-taka. Luis Aragones' side were going to play their first final in 22 years against the almighty Germany. Yes, when comparing the two nations, Germany had the upper hand in almost every aspect. They were the more experienced team, with incredibly well-rounded players: Michael Ballack, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Lukas Podolski, Miroslav Klose, Philipp Lahm and Jens Lehmann. After all, half of their squad had played in the World Cup final just 4 years earlier. On top of that, Germany had won more trophies: 3 World Cups to Spain's 0, and 3 Euros to Spain's 1. Once again, La Roja had the odds stacked against them, just like they were against Italy. But as the popular football saying goes, it's in games like these that legends are born. And well, they surprised the world by winning the trophy with pragmatic, impressive and, above all, effective football. In the final of Euro 2008, Spain didn't have any of the typical flashy moments that make you say, wow, how did they do that? No, Spain played smart and solid, with La Roja's defensive players making the biggest impact. Yes, names like Ramos, Puyol, Carlos Marchena and Jon Capdevila have been impressive throughout the tournament, but they were at their best in this game. Their excellent interventions ensured that Spain held on to their 1-0 lead after Fernando Torres scored in the 33rd minute. Ultimately, there were at least 5 or 6 names that could be mentioned as Spain's best players of the tournament, but one man who really flew under the radar was defensive midfielder Marcos Senna. He was exceptional in every game and was the link between Spain's defense and attack. He anchored the midfield and set the rhythm of play. And it was worth mentioning that his role continued to be influential, even though Euro 2008 was his last major tournament. After the departure of Luis Aragonés, Spain's next coach, Vicente del Bosque, decided to place Sergio Busquets in that position, leaving Senna out for the 2010 World Cup. But the Villarreal man showed how every Spanish holding midfielder should play. We saw that with Busquets in the last 15 years, and now we're seeing the same with Rodri. Therefore, it's no surprise that the so-called pivot position is considered the most important in Spanish football. Yes, this tournament had gone down as one of the most convincing Euro triumphs in history. 5 wins in 6 games. Not only that, but it also set the stage for something unimaginable, something that had been written in golden letters in the football history books. And what do you think was the most important factor in Spain's success between 2008 and 2012? Was it the individual quality of certain players such as Iniesta, Xavi or Villa, or was it the team as a whole? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed that one, please drop a like, hit the subscribe button and check out some of our latest uploads. Catch you in the next one and see you on the pitch.